Okay. Um, just need to take a minute. So I finished this book a couple days ago, and I need to like calm down. Not in that way. Um, so if you don't know, Sarah J. Maas is an extremely popular writer. You talk to anyone who's a woman who says they read fantasy, the first thing that they're going to mention is this 9 times out of 10. It's sold tens of millions of copies. She's written 2 series. This is her second one. It's allegedly the sort of genre has become known as romantasy. It's romance fantasy. However, it's not romance. It's not romance at all. There's no romance at all in this book. But we're gonna calm down and we're gonna get to it. First of all, let's just talk about the things I like about the book. Okay, just have a really nice short section about the things I like. I love fairy aesthetic and like put wings on anything like fairies, angels, and I love that. Also the sort of the Celtic myth. I love that too. So like the book taking place in this world where we have Hibern, which is Hibernia, aka Ireland, and Prythian, which the name Prythian should be Prithia. Prythian should be someone who is from Prithia, which is like Britannia, the Roman name for Britannia, much like the Roman name for Ireland was Hibernia. Very cool and compelling. Oddly enough, though, in this world, the India is called Bharat, which is like it's spelled the exact same way as the actual name of India, Bharat, which is weird. But Prythian and Hibern, Prythian sounds wrong every time I say it. So having sort of a fairy world set in the British Isles and Ireland, with like broken up into the day court, dawn court, night court, winter court, summer court, like that is compelling to me. I'm like, what is this world? I want to know more about this world. I don't know what this other map is meant to be. Anyways, so the world itself, I'm really interested in, and I want to know more about the history of it. Also, I want to know more about. I want like a big like those books that came out in like the early 2000s that were like there's like a dragon one and I can't think. I think there was an Egyptology one, but I want one that's like sort of a compendium with lots of illustrations about all the different types of fairies and what they do. I want that sort of thing. So the world building, the idea of the world, I like, and I love the fairy aesthetic. I love the idea of. Although in this world the fairies are more like elves, fairies should be, in my mind, more pranksters, nasty, and there are some nasty fairies in here. But there's less like goofy fun. These fairies are very hierarchical and ordered and noble and aristocratic and proper, which is like, it's not really fairies. Anyways, is that all I like about this book? Yeah, so I do like the aesthetic, and there was times when I was reading it where I was like, yeah, I'm wondering where this is going. I want to know more. And then we get to the actual story, and about halfway through this book, I get really angry, and I was just like, I was really mad, and then it gets to the point where Feyre, goes back to her family, and I calmed down. I was like, okay, so this is nice again, you know. The book's as long as you separate those two characters, everything's great, and then the sort of final arc, but setting storyline, again, just didn't make me as angry. It just made me sort of like disappointed. I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. So it's this girl named Feyre, which is the worst name ever. It's like you tried to misspell fairy, and then mispronounce it. And she lives in a world where they hate fairies. They hate everything fae. It's like pure evil to them. And yet they name their child Feyre. Anyways, so in this world takes place 500 years after humans who had been the slaves of fairies rose up in rebellion with the help of some fairy, not collaborators, allies, and overthrew their fairy overlords, and the fairies had been banished to these northern realms, namely Prythian, Britannia, Highburn, Ireland, and I think like Fairy Scandinavia, I assume. Um, or maybe it's just the British Isles and Ireland. Anyways, so Feyre lives in on southern uh, England with her family. They come from aristocratic background. However, their father lost a lot of money, and so her mother died, and she lives with her father, who's just a deadbeat and doesn't do anything. And her sisters are just like petty. She's got two sisters. One of them's like sort of brain dead. The other one's like evil and nasty and mean. By the way, one of her sisters, Nestor, is that her name? What is that name from? Nestor. It's like the last name of someone from like A Song of Ice and Fire or something. Is one of the few characters where I kind of actually like them in a weird way. So she goes out hunting because she's the only one that provides for her family. And when she's hunting, she's a deer. She's about to shoot the deer, and then a wolf attacks the deer, and it's a big wolf. And she kills this wolf, and she's kind of worried that the wolf was a fairy. But she's like, no, it actually wasn't. So she kills the wolf using this magical ash arrow that she has, and kills the deer, and then slings the deer over her shoulders along while it's wrapped in the wolf pelt and carries it home, which these must be some tiny deer because there's no way a 19-year-old girl is carrying a deer out. I don't think a 30-year-old buff man would have trouble carrying a deer, but these must be a different type of deer than I'm thinking of. Must be very small deer. And she didn't even clean it. She just anyways, we're not getting into that. Oh boy. And then this beast fairy shows up. This like literal, I just can describe it as a beast. This four-legged, horned, talons and claws and teeth beast shows up at her house and is like, who killed my friend? Grr, I'm so mad. They're like, what are you talking about? The wolf, who killed it? And Feyre's like, me, I did it. He's like, well, the law says that life for a life. You killed my friend, now I will kill you. Oh, but wait, you're young and hot and a teenager. You're coming back to live with me. Gross. So this begins the whole... I don't even know how to describe it. This is just the most toxic, grossest, like... It's a textbook for the worst type of relationship that you should avoid like the plague. So it turns out the fairy who took her back is this 550-year-old High Lord who rules over this kingdom. But see, again, this is what made me mad, is that tens of millions of people love this book. And I'd love, if you do love this book, this series, please comment and tell me why I'm wrong and what I'm not getting. Because obviously I'm not a woman. But, like, is that what women want? To have ultra rich and powerful, really old men to come and take them away when they're against their will and hold them hostage? I don't know. So yeah, so he's 550 years old, and they're like, well, actually, fairies take longer to age, so they're not really adults until they're 75. Okay, so let's say that Feyre, who's 19, has just become an adult, so in fairy years, she's like 75. He's 550. Do the math. He's like old enough to be her great-grandfather. It's super creepy. And of course, as soon as she gets taken back, the fairies are like, so, we got a boyfriend? You single? Get anyone back home? Which, like, that's instantly the first thing they talk about. Gross. So the main lord's name's Tamlin, who's the lord of the Spring Court, and he's holding her hostage, but he's not treating her like a slave. He's treating her like a princess. She's waited on by numerous other fairies who are not high fae, they're low fae, because this is a very patriarchal, hierarchical society where there is no equality. People are born into a class and you're stuck there. So Feyre gets looked after by Alice, who's not high fae. She's described as stumpy and plump. She's like one of only 3 female characters who have lines in this whole book, and the other one's like an arch demon, not demon, like the big bad evil person. Anyways, I never ever considered myself a feminist until I read this book, and then I'm like, I'm not saying it, just I understand now what people mean when they say they're a feminist, because this book is just so full of everything wrong with relationships and how women's roles in society and everything. So anyways, so Tamlin's the lord, and he has this friend who's the son of the high lord of the autumn court. His name's Lucian. Thank God for Lucian. Lucian's the only character that, I mean, I said I kind of like Nestor or whatever her name is, but Lucian is like the only normal character who's like a genuinely nice person, and I really like Lucian. And like, he's got a fox mask and he's got red hair, so like, of course I'm gonna like Lucian. He's also got a middle eye that's constantly narrowing. The writing in this book is awful. I mean, it's a young adult novel, so it's going to be awful, but it's like the phrase his middle eye narrowed is constantly stated, which I imagine is like, it's like kind of a clockwork brass eye, where I imagine it's like the iris like closes the aperture. Anyways, what are the other lines? The other awful line is it always says that her bowels turn to water. That comes up like 5 times in this book, and every time I imagine it, I'm like, okay, so it just turns to straight liquid and just runs it. Like, does she just instantly have diarrhea every time? Every time that line is read, I'm imagining she's just diarrheaing all over the place. It's just disgusting. But like, who says her bowels turn to water, or her bowels got watery? Ugh. Another thing, a weird thing, is that characters are always vomiting. There's a lot of vomiting. Anytime anyone's overwhelmed or like anxious or really upset, they just vomit. It's like their go-to response. Not just one character, but multiple characters. Which I'm like, is that a thing? I mean, it's probably a thing for some people, but it's weird how much it came up in this book. So anyway, so she's held hostage by these people, and eventually she keeps describing how just incredibly hot this guy is, and he's so hot. And it's literally, I was there 10,000 years ago. I read the entire Twilight series. This is just Twilight all over again. It's the same thing. We've got a bestial, much older man who is and has a lot of power over a young teenager who has little to no power, and the strong bestial monster man uses his hotness and power to make the young girl fall in love with him, and it's just gross. Yeah, so they say this is a romance book. Throughout the whole book, there is zero romance. There is zero reason. They say, oh, I'm in love. They have no idea what love is. They are in lust, if that's a thing. Yeah, it bugs me so much. The only one time when they sort of kind of get to know each other and have sort of a one-on-one is when she shows him her paintings he does. And he goes in and he's like, looks at the paintings that she made for him, and then he ignores it and looks at ones that she did that she didn't want to show him, and finds one of like the woods in her cottage, and he's like, this one, I want this one, because it shows me that you are someone who had to sacrifice to care for those that you love, just like I do, and you're the only one I've ever met who understands what that's like. He's 550 years old and he's never met anyone who has to sacrifice to help those that they love. That is categorically wrong, because Alice, the plump, stumpy lower fae, who is his servant, had to sacrifice her life in the summer court to look after her dead sister's children. I guess he doesn't know his servants because they're beneath him, and he's sort of a freaking oligarch, disgusting aristocrat. Yeah, and so he says it probably just to get this 19-year-old to sleep with him, which is disgusting, because he's like, in human years, he's like 102. Yeah, so the issue, the conflict in the novel is that there's this thing called the Blight that's taking away magical powers, and all these evil fairies are getting out of control, and so it's all coming to a head, and this really evil dude named Reese, I'm gonna say Reese, I want to say Rice, but I'm gonna say Reese, shows up, who's the High Lord of the Night Court, and he's like, messes with Tam and gets Tam to like kiss his feet and bow to him so that he doesn't reveal to Amarantha, who's the big evil queen, that he's got this human hostage. And anyways, he ends up sending Feyre back to her parents, and then I was like, okay, calm down, she's away, she goes back to her family, and her family now has this giant manor, and her father's working again, and he's much better. And all this teaches you is that if you have any mental health problems or any familial or relationship problems, money will solve them. Just get money. Just prostitute yourself to a super wealthy man, and all your problems will go away. That really upset me as well. Like, I know, understand this is written like by a female for the female gaze, but like spin it around. What if it was written by a man for men? Like, we can change the setting too. So there's a 65-year-old CEO of this mega corporation, and he notices someone stole from him accidentally from one of his stores. So he personally goes to her house and is like, "It's the law. You stole from me. You're my slave now. You have to come and live with me." And then he pampers her and makes this 19-year-old fall in love with him. If someone wrote that book, it would be disgusting and no one would read it. But the same thing in a fantasy setting, written from the female perspective, is suddenly super hot and great. Gross. I guess age gap doesn't matter if the older person is hot and powerful. And another, it's pretty rapey too. Like, there's one scene where after this freaking fire festival where he has to get high and have sex to sort of reinvigorate the land, which I get it, he's like the Lord of the Spring Court and fertility rights and whatnot, okay, but after that he bumps into her in the manor, and he like still is like super aroused and can't really control himself. So he like bites her neck, and she's like, "No, stop." And he's like, "No, I'm not gonna stop." And she's like, "Oh, I'm glad he didn't stop. I really liked it." Like, anyone reading, like if a young male is reading this, they're gonna be like, "Oh, so when she says no, she actually means yes." Like, that is the worst message you could possibly give. And again, write it from the other perspective. "Oh, so I was biting her neck and she asked me not to, but I could tell she wanted me to, so I kept going." Like, just so gross. And I know it's like, this is a story, it's not real. It's fantasy in the most literal sense. This is what people want, apparently, which grosses me out and makes me hate people. But maybe I'm just a really bitter single male, and that's why I'm so upset about this. But anyway, so she goes back to her family. And she finds out that another family that has been killed and their house burned down by evil fairies, and she's like, "Oh no, that was meant to be me. I have to go save him." So she goes back into fairyland, goes to the manor, and he's gone. He's been captured and taken by this queen Amarantha, who has used her powers to subjugate all of the High Lords, and she rules Prithian, and she's super evil. And so she lives in this court under the mountain. So magically, Feyre goes through a secret passage and gets teleported there because it's like so far away. Anyways, whatever. She gets there, and then it's revealed that so this Amarantha, she's successfully tricked all of the High Lords, and she has total power, and she has total rule over Prithian, and she's setting up to invade the human lands and take over. She is set, but for whatever stupid reason, bad writing is the reason, she made a deal with Tamlin. She said, "Well, since you want your powers back, I give you 7 times 7 years to..." This is so convoluted. "You need to find a human girl who hates fairies so much that she kills one of your friends. Then you have to get the girl to fall in love with you and say the words, 'I love you.' And if she does that, then you are free and I will give you all of your power back." Like, why would you make that deal if you already won? And then secondly, that's so convoluted and specific. And of course, that's exactly what happens in the novel. And that explains like all the weird sort of semi-rapey, non-consensual kidnapping and hostage taking and coercion that they use, because it was all to break the curse. And if she only would have said, "I love you," which she did love him at the end before he sent her away, and he said to her twice, "I love you," and she just kind of like stared back at him. She did love him, but she didn't say it. Although, again, there's no love here. There is no romance, no love whatsoever. They hardly know each other. They're just lusting. Anyways, she goes back in. She's been taken captive. She's now in this court. And again, Amarantha's like, Oh, you want to free Tamlin because you love him so much? Well, I've already won and I have everything I possibly want and I could kill you. However, if you can pass my 3 super random convoluted trials, then you and Tamlin and the whole Spring Court will go free. And if that's not stupid enough, she's like, oh, and also, if you can solve my riddle, I will immediately set everyone free. And she gives the most basic riddle of all time. Like, you have to have an IQ of less than 60 to get this, to not be able to understand this riddle. So yeah, the riddle's clearly, the answer is love. It's so dumb. And she's like, I don't know what the riddle is. Why would the High Queen who has all the power be like, solve this basic riddle and everyone goes free? Like, this would never happen. But in order to make a plot and conflict and a stupid, awful story, that's what she does. And then we get into the most disgusting parts of this novel. So first of all, I read Twilight. I know what's gonna happen. I knew that if there's a bunch of immortal people and a mortal girl, she's obviously going to become a fae, just like Bella became a vampire. That was a given. And then this Rhys guy gets in more into the picture, and I know it didn't happen in this book, but I know in later books she's going to fall in love with him as well, and I'm sure there'll be some fairy BS rule where it's like, well, we have a marriage pair, but also a mating pair. But since there's a High Lords, there's actually a loophole where you can like hook up with both guys, and it's totally cool. And I know that's gonna happen. So this Rhys guy, who's like pure evil incarnate, and by the end of it, they try to make it out like, oh, he was just trying to help her out. He was actually a good guy the whole time, but everyone loves a bad boy, so they got to present him as a bad boy. But I worry for the teenage girls who read this book and get in relationships with bad boys who treat them the way Rice treats Feyre, and they think, oh no, he's just like Rhys, whatever Rice, call him Rice, yeah, he's just like Rice. I can't. This stupid book, it's so toxic. So yeah. So the things Rhys does. First of all, she has her first trial and manages to kill a giant worm in like a maze thing. Like, she takes on Shai Hulud. It's so weird. But in doing so, she breaks her arm so that the bone is sticking out, and she's like dying of a fever and infection. And the first time she was wounded, Lucien came around and healed her. And Lucien would have came around and healed her a second time if she would have waited. So Rhys shows up and he's like, hey, if you agree to give 2 weeks of your life to me every month, then I'll heal you. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, oh, good, do not do it. Like, this was the part of the book where I'm like, yes, finally. She's like, no. She's like spitting at him. She's like, get out. She's in so much pain. She's literally dying, but she's still like, too bad, get out. I'm not taking your stupid deal. Like, you're a horrible, awful person. I'm like, yes, good for her. And then at the last moment, she's like, what if it's 1 week a month? Like, 2 weeks a month makes it sound like, oh, only 2 weeks. 2 weeks a month is literally half of your life. But she changes it to 1 week a month. So a quarter of her life has to be spent in the night court with this creep. And that just like, at that point on, I gave up all hope for this book. Because I was like, yes, she's gonna reject him. But no, she agrees with him. And so he... First of all, this is the worst part. This is the one thing that, like, well, not the one thing, but she says, no, get out. And so he grabs her arm that's, like, bone sticking out and, like, shakes it and twists it. Like, purposefully inflicts intense pain on her for no reason. This isn't, oh, I was doing it to help you out, and I was actually secretly fighting against Amarantha. No, this was pure evil and spite, and this was an awful, abusive person. No matter what comes after, the fact that he did this to an injured, wounded little girl, because again, he's way older than Tamlin, it's just disgusting. So she agrees, and he heals her and leaves her with this tattoo that has an eye on its palm that he can sort of see through. And also this tattoo allows him to see into her mind and read her feelings and understand her body and what she's thinking, which is so creepy and a total, like, she's like, wait, you didn't say this would happen. He's like, well, I didn't say it wouldn't happen either. So now he, like, I'm trying to think of a real life equivalent to this. If you meet some old 45-year-old man meets a girl who's broken down on the side of the road, and he's like, I can fix your car, but I'm gonna have to install spyware on your phone so that I can read all of your messages and see all the pictures you send to everyone and see every message you ever send to anyone. And she's like, okay, fine, do it, fix my car. And then he fixes her car and then also installs the spyware. But then also has the caveat that she has to live with him for a week of the month every year. Disgusting. If she just would have waited for Lucian. Good old Lucian. Like, so stupid. And then if that's not worse, Rhys then starts to sexually exploit her and drug her and in the most grossest way possible. And then it's like at the end, oh no, he was actually doing it because he wanted Tamlin to get really mad so he would kill Amarantha when he was freed, and he was actually doing it just so Amarantha thought he was still on his side. No, this is disgusting behavior. Like, lock this person up and throw away the key. But I know in the future they're gonna fall in love and it's gonna be like, ooh, Rhys is the bad boy, oh, I love Rhys. So he gets his slaves to strip her naked, paint her body up so that if anyone touches her body, he'll see that the paint's been smeared. Puts her in, like, I don't even know what to call it, lingerie. Basically, she's wearing nothing. And then parades her around as his sort of escort. And if that's not bad enough, like, it's sexual exploitation is what it is. If that's not bad enough, he also gets her drunk and drugs her so that she feels like she's enjoying it but has no memory of what's happening. And she sort of gets to the point where she wants to be drugged so that she doesn't feel anything and understand it. And it's so gross and disgusting. And you just want this Rhys guy to just be, like, torn asunder and burnt. And he's so gross. And the whole point of it was that, so that Rhys will think, or Amarantha will think Rhys is still a bad guy, and it's to get Tamlin really mad to see that his the woman he loves, the girl he loves, she's 19, is being paraded around by his enemy, and it's just so gross. And then there's the whole, see, again, there's no romance in this book. So at one point, because she's been paraded around and drugged so much, people, like, lose interest with her. So they're at this party, and Tamlin goes up to her, and they have this one moment where they get a few minutes to themselves after all of this. This is the first time that they've had time alone. They haven't spoken since she came to try and rescue him, and have been going through these trials and all of this. So they finally get a moment alone, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be nice. They're gonna break down crying and be like, how are you doing? I'm so sorry, I'm doing all this for you, and like, what can I do to help? But no, they literally do not say a word to each other. The moment they get time free, they just, like, instantly start banging and are just, like, super aroused. And this is not love. That you are just disgusting animals. Which I guess that's what Feyre wants, is a disgusting bestial animal. I'm trying not to sound like an incel. I'm not an incel, but and I know not all women feel this way, but okay, I probably have gotten myself into trouble, but please comment and tell me where I've gone wrong. There's no romance in this book. And then Rhys, of course, because he can feel everything she's feeling in her entire body and what she's thinking, can tell that, she's up to someone with someone, breaks into the room and sees Tamlin and her, and is like, Tamlin, get out. So Tamlin leaves. And then he senses Amarantha and all her goons are showing up. So then he throws himself on Feyre, non-consensually, and starts making out with her. And then Amarantha and the goons walk in and are like, oh, we knew you couldn't keep your hands off her. Ha 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 ha. Whatever. Anyways, so she has her second trial, which she's illiterate, so she can't read the riddle. And again, it's a riddle, so she sucks at riddles. But Rhys gives her the right answer through the power of his magical tattoo, and then she manages to live. And then the final trial. Oh, this book is so bad. The final trial. 3 fairies, wow, are brought in, two male and one female, and I'm like, oh, it's Alice and her nephews. She's gonna have to kill Alice and her nephews. That's the final trial. But surprisingly, it's not, because that would have been good writing. It's two random young Fae, who the Fae, like, it's very difficult for them to have children. Their children are super, super precious to them. Amaranth has killed 12 of their children, which is, like, very upsetting. And these are two, not children, but they're very young. And she's like, here's an ash dagger, because ash is the only thing that can kill Fae. You have to kill them all. And I'm like, okay, this is the point when she's going to finally figure out the riddle and solve the riddle. No. She kills them. She straight up kills these innocent people, which makes her just as bad as everyone else. And I don't want to say she deserves Reese now, because she does not deserve. She's been tortured and exploited and sexually abused. She does not deserve Reese. Oh boy. So, and then she gets to the final. Oh, this is such bad writing. The final person she has to kill. Like, kill this one person and everyone goes free. Surprise, it's Tamlin. You have to kill the one you love. And she's like, what? Oh, no. But then she remembers two specific lines that were said earlier in the book. Two people have described Tamlin as having a heart of stone. And she's like, oh, he has a heart of stone. So if I try and stab him, he won't actually die because his heart is stone. What a wild conclusion to draw from two throwaway lines about a sort of a standard phrase that people would use to describe someone. So anyway, she stabs Tamlin, and surprise, he does have a heart of stone, so he doesn't actually die. And Amaranth is like, oh, I'm shocked. Okay, I'll let you and the court go free and give Tamlin back his powers. But actually, I didn't say when I do it. I'm going to do it in like 1,000 years from now. Ha 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 ha. So you killed these people for nothing. You did all of this for nothing. And the rest of the rest of the courts are like, man, that's not really fair. Amaranth, you should let them go. Like, it's so stupid. And then she's like, I'm going to kill you now, Feyre, because I'm evil. And so she starts trying to kill Feyre. And then at this point, Reese jumps in and tries to attack Amaranth, just to prove that he's totally a good guy and not a creepy, exploitative, toxic, horribly abusive person, which he is. And then it's at the point when her body's broken and bleeding out and dying that she says, I know the answer to the riddle. It's love. And instantly, Tamlin gets his power back and kills Amarantha, which grants power back to all the courts, and then all the High Lords grant power to Feyre, healing her and making her into Fae, an immortal being. So she killed those people. She endured all those trials, all that exploitation and abuse for nothing. It all would have ended if she just would have said at the start, oh, that's a pretty simple riddle, really? The answer's love. Boom. Problem solved, everyone lives happily ever after. But no, we have to go through this dark... Oh, anyways, I'm not going to break the point. And then, yeah, they go back and live happily ever after. But then Reese is like, oh, man, I'm really sad. I actually just wanted to fly because I actually have bat wings. I don't know if he's like a bat or a dragon or a demon or what. It's like, I'm actually like a Batman. And I just wanted to fly, and I'm really sad because I haven't been able to fly under the mountain, but now I have my powers back. Like, they are gonna hook up, and I hate it so much. Like, all these people are creepy old men who are using their power. Yeah, it's a disgusting patriarchal society where there is no equality, where you're born into a class and you have no power to change your class. And if you're an old, super powerful High Lord creep, you can abuse the heck out of anyone you want, and the fan base will still think you are an amazing person. So that was ACOTAR, which is a pretty cool acronym. It's very fantasy. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. There was parts of me where I'm like, wow, I'm really into this. I'm in, like, I want to see the other courts. What's the Sun Court like? Like, Winter Court, that sounds cool. Like, am I gonna read this whole series? Wow, I didn't expect this. But man, I got so upset at the book, but also upset that people like the book. But I you know what? Let people like whatever people like. Like, who am I Like, literally, I'm nothing. I'm no one. So if people like this, and honestly, I've heard lots of people who were not readers who started reading this, and it's sort of a gateway drug to reading, to fantasy, but also just to literature in general, and actually getting people reading for the first time in years, and that's awesome. That is honestly awesome. Um, as awful a message as this book is, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, it's just a crazy fairy tale that makes me feel spicy. I don't care about the relationship issues. It's not a book to like tell you how to have a relationship. Just don't call it a romance book. It's not romance. If people, if out of the 30 million people who read this, if one of them, if that path leads them to reading Malazan, just one of them, then it's well worth it. We'll say that. I'm exhausted. I had to wait a few days before recording this because this book just upset me so much. I don't know if I'll hate read the other ones. The other ones are longer, which turns me off them even more. If someone wants to make an argument about why I should read them, please do so in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation about this. I wish I had been in a book club with this book, and I'd just love to be, I don't know. I'd love to hear what other people's opinions are about this book. Maybe I should watch some other videos and hear what other people have to say, because wow. If nothing else, it sparked something in me. Like, it made me feel in like an angry way, that not a lot of other books do, but that's young adult fiction. What do you expect? So that was that one.